Making it to the doorstep of the Super Bowl is quite an accomplishment. But like all things in life, sometimes someone stumbles into a position that they don't deserve. You're telling me you've never had a boss like that? Or maybe that you have one right now? There have been 118 conference or league championship games that have sent a team to the Super Bowl, but they were not all created equally, and some of these matchups haven't been great. Today we will be counting down the 10 worst conference championship games in NFL history. We do that through the use of C-Score, a metric created by this channel to evaluate each and every NFL team during the Super Bowl era beyond the simplicity of its record. For a more detailed explanation of C-Score, be sure to check out the description of this video. We're keeping this as simple as pie. We add up the C-scores of the two teams in the championship game. Because this is a worst of list, the lower that combined total, the higher that matchup will rank. As we mentioned in our best of video, 2024's title games are essentially middle of the road, and no matter what happens in the Super Bowl, they won't be finding their way onto this list. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are ready to begin. We'll begin at number 10 at the tail end of the no salary cap, no free agency era. This is the 1992 AFC title game between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Both teams finished with an 11-5 record, but it was the Dolphins who won the AFC East, earning the number 2 seed in the AFC. Buffalo was then left with the number 4 seed, forced into the wild card round, and making one of the most spectacular comebacks in NFL history, beating the Oilers after being behind 35-3. They got one more win to earn their way into this title game. Buffalo did have the better C-score here of over 13, while Miami was just under 8. Their combined total is 21.074. The Bills kept their run alive with their second victory in Miami this season, winning the title game 29-10. They got back to the Super Bowl for what was their third consecutive appearance, where it all came crashing down against the Cowboys. Our last entry saw a matchup of division rivals. Our number 9 entry sees a matchup of former division rivals. We go to the 2008 NFC Championship game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Arizona Cardinals. Formerly members of the NFC East, the Cardinals won the West this season with only a 9-7 record, getting the number 4 seed. The Eagles only finished 9-6-1, but that's deceptive. They outscored their opponents by 127 points, but that record only earned them the number 6 seed. Both teams had to play in the wild card round, but they got their way to this game. Arizona's C-score is positive at 0.12, whereas Philly cleared 20 points, giving us a total of 20.553. This was the first time in their history that the Cardinals played in the NFC Championship game. They took advantage of that situation, winning it 32-23. They got to Super Bowl 43 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they lost in a thriller. We're getting the Philadelphia Eagles once again for our number 8 entry, but just like the last one, this one isn't really their fault. This is the 2004 NFC title game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons. We've covered on this channel before just how terrible the 2004 NFC season was. But Philly did pull their weight, going 13-3, winning the NFC East and getting the number 1 seed. The Atlanta Falcons went 11-5 despite only outscoring their opponents by 3 points, but they did win the South and got the number 2 seed. They did this despite a negative C-score, whereas Philly is once again past 20. This does give us a total though of 19.415. The Eagles essentially toyed with the Falcons in this game, coming away with a 27-10 victory. They then made it to Super Bowl 39 against the New England Patriots, but without playing the kind of teams you want to leading up to that game, they took the loss, and the game was not as close as the score would indicate. Once upon a time, it was extremely rare for there to be a conference championship game that did not contain at least the number 1 or the number 2 seed. But that is exactly what happened with our number 7 entry. This is the 1987 NFC Championship game between the Minnesota Vikings and the Washington Redskins. The Redskins went 11-4, 8-4 not counting replacement games, winning the NFC East and getting the number 3 seed. The Vikings went 8-7-1, 8-4-1, not counting the replacement games, but getting the final wildcard spot in the NFC, giving them the number 5 seed. The Vikings were somewhat hurt by those replacement games, dropping their C-score to about 1.1. Washington was elevated by those games, getting up to 17.9. The total here is 19.11. The Vikings pulled off massive upsets in New Orleans and in San Francisco to get to this game, but they were not able to pull off the trifecta, with Washington slipping out with a 17-10 win, partially on account of Darren Nelson. They got to the Super Bowl, fell behind 10-0, but then had that magical second quarter and wound up destroying the Broncos. The turn of the millennium gives us our number 6 entry. We stay in the NFC. This is the 2000 NFC Championship game between the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota finished 11-5, winning the Central Division and getting the number 2 seed. The Giants surprised by going 12-4, winning the NFC East and getting the number 1 seed. This is the highest ranked matchup we have on this list. That's going to be 1 versus 2. The Giants at around 12.5 and the Vikings at around 5.5 gives us a total C-score of 18.157. Even though the Giants were the number 1 seed, they weren't exactly highly thought of in the NFL landscape. But they had the Vikings by the throat in this game, shutting them out by a 41-0 score. They then went to the Super Bowl where they got shut out, at least offensively, only scoring on a kick return in a loss to the Baltimore Ravens. As we enter the second half of the countdown, we need only move 3 years ahead while remaining again in the NFC for our number 5 entry. This is the title game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Carolina Panthers. The Eagles were back in this game for the 3rd straight season. As NFC East champions, they went 12-4 and were the conference's number 1 seed. The Panthers went 11-5, only outscoring their opponents by 21, but good enough to win the NFC South and getting the number 3 seed. Their C-score is not even 4, while the Eagles barely clear 12. Their total is 16.021. Yet, despite their shortcomings, the Panthers' defense dominated this game, with cornerback Ricky Manning becoming the lost Manning brother, and the Panthers won this game 14-3. They then lost the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, but we're pretty sure John Casey still got a ring. It's finally time to return to the AFC. At number 4, we have the 1996 AFC Championship game between the New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Patriots bounced back from a bad 95 season to go 11-5 and winning the AFC East, getting the conference's number 2 seed. The Jacksonville Jaguars were only in their 2nd season of existence and had a torrid ending to the season to get to 9-7 despite being outscored on the season and earning the conference's number 5 seed as a wild card. Yet the Jaguars become the 2nd team we've seen to go under 0 in C-score, while the Patriots are at around 17.5. Their combined total is 14.442. The Jaguars played hard and actually had a chance in this one, being down only 13-6. But after a lost fumble, the game was also lost at 20-6. The Pats went to Super Bowl 31, where they did not play bad at all, but they were up against a certain kind of greatness in the Green Bay Packers. That was 1996 in the AFC. We only need travel back 1 year for our number 3 entry. This is the 1995 AFC title game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts. Pittsburgh went 11-5, winning the Central Division and earning the number 2 seed, looking to redeem themselves after falling just short of the Super Bowl the season before. The Colts kinda came out of nowhere to go 9-7, only outscoring their opponents by 15 points and earning the number 5 seed as a wildcard entry. Pittsburgh's C-score just missed hitting 14 points, Indy's C-score just missed hitting half a point, for a grand total of only 0.3 points worse than our prior entry, at 14.412. The two played the 5 in the AFC title game in both 95 and 96, and the number 1 seed was knocked out in 97 as well. This was tough times to be an AFC number 1 seed. As for this game, the Steelers held on to win 20-16 after a dropped Hail Mary. They went to Super Bowl 30 against the Dallas Cowboys, where they got O'Donnelled. After taking a look at 2 AFC title games from the mid-90s, we now go back in time to check out the first ever AFC title game. This is our number 2 entry. This is 1970, and the matchup is between the Baltimore Ravens and the Oakland Raiders. Baltimore joined the AFC this season after previously being members of the NFL, went to the AFC East and promptly won the division with an 11-2-1 record. The Raiders are charter members of the AFL. They were AFC Western Division champions with an 8-4-2 record. This was during a time where the NFL did not have overtime during the regular season. The Colts have a C-score of about 10.5. The Raiders barely clear 3 points. This gives us a total of 13.88. There was no playoff seeding in the NFL in 1970, but the rotation system got it right by giving the Colts the home game for this one. They never trailed before pulling away for a 27-17 win. They then won the sloppiest Super Bowl ever played, known today as the Blunder Bowl, on a late field goal by rookie kicker Jim O'Brien. All of the games we've looked at in this countdown have been bad in their own right, but we have now reached the creme de la creme. Our number 1 entry by a long shot is the 1979 NFC title game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. Tampa is in their 4th season of existence, and after only knowing losing, had a 10-6 record this season and won the Central Division, getting the number 2 seed in the conference. The Rams had been great throughout the 70s, but stumbled to 9-7 this season, still winning the West and getting the number 3 seed. In our first 9 entries, only 2 teams had a negative C-score. In this one entry, they both do, combining for a negative 4.748. And not only was this matchup bad, the game itself was too. Now, low-scoring games aren't always bad, but we give a big yuck to this one. The Rams won 9-0, then put up a good fight in Super Bowl 14 before ultimately falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looking at the top 10 as a whole, the gap from top to bottom here wouldn't be so bad if not for the Bucs and the Rams. In fact, it's just over 7 points of separation between 10th and 2nd, but we'll get back to that in just a moment. 16 different franchises made it onto this list, which is officially half of the NFL's 32 teams. But since the Houston Texans have never made it to a conference championship game, technically it's at more than half with 16 out of 31. That didn't leave a lot of room for repeat appearances, but the Colts and Vikings still managed 2, while the Eagles managed 3, all in a 6-year period, reflective of the NFC's weakness during that time. That aided the NFC to a 6-4 advantage over the AFC. 3 of these games were won on the road, with only the 1970 Colts and the 1987 Redskins climbing the mountain and winning the Super Bowl. Okay, let's talk a little more about the Rams and the Bucs. Let's shove everybody else out of the way here and introduce a game that didn't make this list. The 2016 NFC Championship game between the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. This game qualifies as the 24th worst conference title game of all time, with a combined C-score of 32.407. Let's now reintroduce the second place finisher with its 13.88 C-score. The gap between 2nd and 24th is 18.527. The gap between 1st and 2nd, 18.628. So 2nd place is closer to 24th place than it is to 1st. We can, and will, state with confidence that no conference championship game will ever displace this one as the single worst in the history of the NFL. Thank you so very much for getting this far into the video. If you liked it, hit that like button, share it around, and subscribe to the channel along with dinging that bell. Let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think the 1979 NFC title game can ever be topped? Would it take even further playoff expansion? Perhaps allowing every team in the league to qualify for the playoffs would do the trick. Or maybe one day the Chiefs finish 0-17, but Roger gives them a waiver after Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift announce plans to get married during the Super Bowl halftime show. Who knows anymore? As usual, please leave your thoughts in the comment section about any surprises, any wedding planners you can recommend for the future Mr. and Mrs. Swift, or anything else you may have on your mind. Thank you once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.